use that, and now I'm going to do a little bit of, I'm going to do a real light brown. A little more brown in there. Okay. And add some yellow to it. So now it looks more like a dried up leaf color, like almost like a wood color. And now instead of, I've shown you how to do the palette thing, which I'll just do one more for fun. Yeah, I think that probably needs a little more yellow, but you know, we're just experimenting here. Putting colors on top of other colors. That's impasto. Okay, it's thick paint. Like that, boom, boom. Now, if you want to use a brush, obviously, you can do that too. So I'll take a brush and do the same thing with this tree, you know, and it's got a bunch of kind of big fat old leaves. I'm going to do it like that. Yeah, and what you maybe, I don't know if you guys see, I'm not, again, not doing it like a pencil, although you can. That's a bit more of a scumble kind of thing. I'm taking the brush and laying it sideways and scooping the paint up like that. So I get these big glops of paint. Like that. A little more yellow too. Yeah. And some more green too. You know, and go to town. Have fun. So now I'm mixing with the brush again. You can mix with the brush. You can mix with the palette knife. Again, I'll get you guys, when can I get some palette knives? I'll get some tomorrow. I'll be out driving around. Okay, and so now I'm covering up that dark stuff, because as you can see, when I initially did the underpainting, these two trees were both pretty dark, but when I'm looking at the image, the shadow here is super dark, and this tree, frankly, is not that dark. The branches and the limbs are a little bit dark, but the leaves really aren't. So I'm going to go back in and, you know, do this kind of green thing with this impasto paint. And I'm going to put it out in the blue. Why not? Let's see what happens. So don't be afraid to experiment with this. Like that. And again, if you want to, you can pick up the paint with the side of your brush like that. Just do little dabs like this. Be like Crazy Van Gogh. If you really want to be like Crazy Van Gogh, by the way, then that's when you do use a palette knife. So I'm going to do, I've got the red, yeah, alizarin crimson, a little yellow. And I'm going to do, where did it go? There. Now, if you see, there's some pink on the front of the stage, that little decoration thing. It's kind of this like psychedelic flower thing that they put up there. It's kind of stupid. But. So I'm trying to match that pink. Yeah, it's not bad. Now, if I were Van Gogh, I would go in and instead of, I personally would do, I would paint it like that. I would paint it with a brush, you know, and do like, and again, this is scumbling. So it's not thick. I'm just putting the paint on dry and opaque to get these pink areas that I want that are on top of the signage of the thing, like that. Okay. I know, it's early in the morning. I need my coffee too. She said, yawning. But if Van Gogh were doing this, you know, he'd get nuts. Now, this isn't in the painting, but he would, you know, do this. And if you've seen Van Gogh's, you know, he does this. You know, and then this. You know, using the palette knife to create these deep brushstrokey gouges kind of paint. And his whole paintings are covered up with those. He would use a combination of palette knife and brush and build the whole thing up that way. So when you guys go to the Norton Simon and you get to see a lot of these Van Goghs in person. Take a close look, like get up close, and don't worry about what the guards say, because they'll freak. They're like, will you please step back from the painting, you know, but try to get up close when they're not looking, you know, and you can see the beautiful textures that Van Gogh got. And a lot of other painters did this too. You know, he's just the most famous one, and I mention him because you can go to a museum here and see it for yourself. Okay. Trying to think if there's anything. There's actually a show, and I would love to take you guys to this show, but it's kind of far, and we don't really have time for an extra field trip. But there's a show in Culver City now by an artist named Knopf. He's like this German guy, and he does these insane, huge paintings. They're really spectacular. They've got all sorts of weird figures in them and abstract things, and it's oil and acrylic and airbrush. I mean, they're all over the place. But he also just has some random giant things of impasto, just like blah, you know, that are part of the overall composition of the painting. And if you want to see some really beautiful, meaty painting that's both like flat and shiny and matte and thick and thin and spray painted, and I mean, he uses every tool in the book to make these really spectacular paintings. It's on La Cienega in Culver City. It's right off the freeway. So if you guys are interested, or you happen to be going to Culver City, let me know and I'll tell you how to get there. Because I just went there on Saturday to check it out. I'm like, oh, I'd love to take my kids to see this show. It's so good. Okay. So scumbling, dry paint. You know, use the weave of the canvas to create texture or not. Okay. Impasto, use a palette knife. You know, like you can use it to drag across the surface very lightly to create beautiful textures. You can make pink leaves. I don't care if you make pink leaves. Okay. Stuff like that, okay? And again, I want to leave this alone. There's some time, it's like I'm not telling you guys to, you know, scumble or impasto the whole painting. Like if something's working the way it already is after the glazing like this, don't screw it up. I'm like, look, that looks great. I don't want to mess with that. I might do some other things later, but that looks fine. But I did want to get these little highlights of the leaves up here, you know, to make it look a little, and now I've like totally messed it up because I made it pink, which is kind of crazy. But I just wanted to show you like this technique, like drag the palette knife, and I'll get you guys some tomorrow, across like that, and you can get some wonderful textures that you could never achieve with a brush. You can mix the paint with a palette knife, apply it with a palette knife, mix it with a brush, apply it with a brush. I would like everybody, you know, at some point on your painting, especially the sunset. Can I take a look at that? Will somebody hand me her sunset painting? Yeah. Okay. This is screaming to be done with impasto. Okay. What part am I talking about? The reflections in the water, because I've seen the photograph. And in the photograph, these reflections are solid, really bright, light yellow rectangles of color. And she's kind of laid it in. That's where they're supposed to go. But now it's time to put them on really, really thick, if she so chooses. Or it can be scumbling. But this needs opaque, bright color there. I'm looking at these leaves that have a beautiful green glaze on top of the brown. And again, that's what I talked about over here, where you get that glaze effect where you're looking through multiple layers of color and it's really subtle and really gorgeous. Would I change that? No. Yeah, I'd probably leave the leaves alone because the glazing technique really looks beautiful there. But in order to really give the impact of that reflected sun on the water, you definitely want to go in there with some impasto. So different parts of the painting call for different techniques, you know, and that's why I'm showing you how to do the glazing, how to layer that stuff, and how to use scumbling and impasto if it fits what you need to do for the painting. Everybody can do at least a little bit of scumbling on their painting and it won't wreck it and it'll help it. Not everybody needs big impasto, but some of you do, or I think you do, and it might make the painting really interesting. Any questions? Cool. And again, I understand you don't have any palette knives today, and you don't have to get on it right now. If you, some of you guys I noticed had already done a liquid glaze and you're doing another like layer of that, that's fine. But I wanted to do the demo so that you know how to do this Scumbling and Impasto application because I would like everybody to experiment with it on their first painting. There we go. Thank you. Beautiful, beautiful. And Mac, thanks for letting me use your stuff.